On a metal shelf inside a government archive in Berlin, there is a small glass jar. It looks ordinary. Transparent. Cylindrical. A simple screw-on lid. Inside the jar, a folded piece of fabric rests quietly. On the outside, a typed label. A date. A code. A name. The jar was not evidence of a crime. It was evidence of a person. During the final decades of the Cold War, the East German secret police, the Stasi, developed a practice that feels almost fictional. They collected smell. When someone was considered politically unreliable, officers would obtain an item that carried that person's scent. A piece of clothing. A chair cushion. A cloth pressed briefly against skin. The material would be sealed in a jar. Labeled. Filed. Stored for the future. Not for immediate use, but in case the system needed it. The purpose was practical. Tracking dogs could be used to follow a suspect if they attempted to flee. A preserved scent sample increased the chances of identification. But the jar did something else. It turned something invisible into property. It transformed presence into an archived asset. And it revealed something fundamental about how the system worked. The Stasi did not only observe behavior. It prepared for possibilities. To understand the jar, you have to understand where it came from. East Germany in the late 1970s did not look like a police state in constant motion. It looked like apartment blocks. Prefabricated concrete panels. Identical stairwells. Mailboxes aligned in rows near the entrance. In the morning, doors opened almost simultaneously. People descended the stairs carrying briefcases, school bags, shopping nets. Elevators hummed. Radios played behind thin walls. Television light flickered at night. Routine gave the architecture stability. The system did not rely only on visible force. It relied on documentation. The Ministry for State Security, officially created to protect the socialist state, built one of the most extensive domestic surveillance systems in modern history. By the 1980s, the Stasi employed around 91,000 full-time staff. In addition, it relied on roughly 180,000 unofficial collaborators, informants embedded in ordinary life. Teachers. Doctors. Caretakers. Neighbors. Sometimes the informant lived on the same floor. Sometimes they shared a kitchen in subdivided apartments. Reports were written after small conversations. After remarks in waiting rooms. After gatherings where someone spoke a sentence too freely. The ratio was staggering. In a country of about 16 million people, one in roughly every 60 citizens had some form of direct connection to the surveillance apparatus. But the strength of the system was not only in numbers. It was in paperwork. Every conversation reported. Every suspicion logged. Every hesitation noted. Handwritten notes were typed. Typed notes were copied. Copies were distributed across departments. The Stasi did not simply gather secrets. It constructed files. Thick folders containing fragments of lives. Letters opened and photographed before being resealed. Phone calls recorded on magnetic tape. Travel requests evaluated line by line. Personal relationships diagrammed in branching charts. The apartment block became an extension of the archive. Walls did not need microphones everywhere. They needed participants. And when suspicion intensified, the system could move from listening to preservation. That is when the jar appeared. The Stasi headquarters in Berlin-Lichtenberg was not designed like a dramatic intelligence hub. It was administrative. Long corridors lined with identical office doors. Fluorescent lights. Metal filing cabinets arranged in rows. The architecture of control was bureaucratic. Inside these buildings, surveillance became standardized. Officers were trained not only in interrogation or infiltration, but in documentation protocols. Information had to be categorized, indexed, cross-referenced. Every report assigned to a master file. Every file connected to parallel records in other departments. A name triggered a network. Addresses. Associates. Past evaluations. Travel restrictions. The smell sample fit naturally into this logic. It was treated like a document. Each jar received a reference number, a corresponding file entry, a storage location within controlled conditions. The body was reduced to traceable data. The state was not waiting for rebellion. It was preparing for deviation. If a citizen applied for permission to travel west, the file grew. If someone expressed skepticism about policy, the file grew. If a writer submitted an ambiguous manuscript, the file grew. If a factory worker complained about quotas, the file grew. The jar was rarely the beginning. It was a contingency. A quiet admission that the system expected movement. The most striking feature was not cruelty. It was anticipation. The Stasi believed that stability required foresight. And foresight required material. By the late 1980s, the Stasi had accumulated files on millions of citizens. When the Berlin Wall fell in 1989, protesters stormed Stasi buildings to prevent the destruction of documents. They discovered rooms filled floor to ceiling with paper, stacks tied with string, card indexes sorted alphabetically, shredded bags waiting for disposal. Reconstruction teams later spent years reassembling torn fragments by hand. In total, the archive would eventually occupy over 100 kilometers of shelving. A country documented in paper. And among those papers, jars. Small containers holding a chemical trace of ordinary existence. After reunification, East Germans were granted the right to request access to their Stasi files. The procedure was formal. An application submitted. Identity verified. Months of waiting. Then a letter arrived with a scheduled appointment. In a quiet reading room, staff members placed folders on a desk. Across the table, your own life, described by others. Reports written by acquaintances. Observations about your tone of voice. Descriptions of your apartment interior. Notes on who visited and how long they stayed. Sometimes the reports were precise. Sometimes speculative. Often incomplete. In some cases, a note indicated that scent samples had been collected. Not everyone had a jar. But enough did for the practice to be documented and confirmed in official records. The shock was not only in what the state knew. It was in how systematically it had prepared to know more. The jar symbolized a particular logic. If a person could be tracked, they might flee. If they might flee, their scent should be preserved. If their scent could be preserved, the archive would be ready. It was not emotional. It was procedural. The system did not shout. It catalogued. And yet the psychological effect extended beyond the technical use of tracking dogs. When citizens learned that neighbors had reported on them, trust shifted. When they learned that the state had stored pieces of their presence, privacy shifted. The apartment block had always looked ordinary. But retrospect changed its geometry. Every hallway could have been a corridor of observation. Every mailbox a possible checkpoint in the flow of information. The jar did not create the reality. It made it tangible. Today, some of those jars remain in archives. They are not displayed as trophies. They are artifacts. The glass is thin. The labels are fading. The cloth inside is silent. The Cold War is often remembered through missiles, summits, and border crossings. But the system inside East Germany operated at a different scale. It measured tone. It recorded hesitation. It prepared for footsteps. The jar was small. The system was vast. And the distance between the two was only a filing cabinet. Because in the end, the Stasi did not simply collect information. It collected contingency. It archived the possibility that a citizen might one day move in the wrong direction. The scent in the jar was never meant for the present. It was stored for a future deviation. A future that might never come. But if it did, the system would already be prepared. The glass jar did not prove guilt. It proved readiness. And in East Germany, readiness was a form of power.